You're welcome once again to Face the Press. My name is Anambra, and in this edition of the program, we are featuring the political advisor to the governor of Anambra State, Barrister Ifeatu Obi-Okoye. Barrister Ifeatu Obi-Okoye, before now, was the National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressive Grand Alliance. He was one-time Anambra State Chairman of the People's Democratic Party. But currently, he is the political advisor to Governor Obiano of Anambra State. We are going to discuss political issues with special focus on the forthcoming congresses and national convention of the All Progressive Grand Alliance. Welcome to Face the Press, Barrister Okoye.
Thank you so much.
Obi-Okoye.
The same thing, Okoye and Obi-Okoye.
And with me to interview him is my friend and colleague of the Vanguard newspaper, Vincent Ujuma.
You're welcome.
Chief Obi-Okoye, yes, you are the political advisor to the governor, and incidentally, the governor of Anambra State is the leader and BOT chairman of the All Progressive Grand Alliance.
That is so.
And your party is making a frantic efforts, towards conducting primaries and ultimately the national convention of your party. How is the party getting ready for this? I'm asking this question because you are close to the governor, you are an advisor to the BOT and leader, BOT chairman and leader of the party. How is the party getting ready for the congresses and convention?
I believe that being conscious of our immediate past, that's the primaries, we are beginning to take steps that will ensure that the current congresses are conducted in the most peaceful and manner that will produce the best result for the party, both for the party in the states and the party general at the national level. I don't like the expression taking frantic. I said, no, we're not making any frantic. The terminal date for the convention, the last one of which I was part of, was on the 6th of June.
Okay.
So when you think about the fact that we ought to have a convention on or before the 6th of June, then you will now appreciate why certain steps are being taken now. Of course, I would also like to remind members in particular that if for any reason we have cause to go beyond the 6th of June, the party constitution provides for an extension up to 6 months. But we're not thinking about that yet. We are thinking about a credible process that will reunite us as a political party more than anything. That was why we came up with the mock ward congresses and local government congresses. We called it mock because we wanted to see how the process will go in each ward. For instance, there were situations where some of the elected officers had unfortunately died. There were situations where some of the elected officers had left the party for other parties. There were also circumstances where some of the elected officers, for one reason or the other, we have been caught up by this anti-party activity and we don't find the person credible to hold office again in that capacity. Then, of course, there are some elected officers who, for health reasons, may not be able to continue as it were, no matter how committed they may be hampered by their health challenges. So we said, let's have congresses and speak to ourselves in-house with utmost cordiality and see whether in the old spirit of APGA, because that has always been how APGA did its things, we can look at these positions and begin to swap positions. Again, there's even a fourth factor. There were people who held certain positions, and after 4 years, we found out that they were not exactly around peg in a round hole. Probably in a different position, they will be able to do well. So we were encouraged at the world level, at this World Congress, to look at all this in general and see how we can harmoniously barter these offices, be able to do a consensus selection, as it were, so that when the actual Congress hopefully takes off on the 22nd, 23rd, perhaps 25th and 27th of this month, it will be rancor-free. Because what we'll now be going for is to confirm an affirmation of those who we have already reached a consensus on. But I'll also say that the dates for the Congresses are not sacrosanct, because undoubtedly we'll have a NEC meeting for ratification of the program and schedule as drawn up by NWC. Now, hopefully, NEC will be able to meet in time, so we'll see if we can continue on schedule.
Now, given the spate of negative or adverse publications we are seeing in the social media against the national chairman of your party, Dr. Victor Ikoyi, it would seem that your party is embroiled in another crisis soon after the general election. And that this thing actually is emanating from the outcome of the primaries prior to the election. How do you react to this? The spate of criticism against, it's like there are some people in the party that doesn't want him. How do you react to this? Your party embroiled in crisis?
I don't think there's any crisis about that. The beauty of democracy is that you must have those who agree and those who disagree. And at all times, the majority will have their way. I wrote a letter to party members and admonished every party member that has been making publications in the social media capable of putting the reputation of a great party into public disrepute. That is not fair for the image of the party. I may be running down Mr. A, but invariably, you are running down the party, but you are running down the leadership of the party. I've always said that people should go and pick up the Constitution and look at what it takes to elect and remove any national officer, or indeed any officer of the party. And I remember the last time I was here, I said, the convention is not about Anambra, nor Imo, nor Enugu, where it does seem these people who have been making all this dirty noise in the social media really come from. That the convention is about the entire 36 states and Abuja. These are the people that are coming from the country. And you must look at who the delegates will be. And the way I said it, the way it also seems to be playing out, because barely 2 weeks ago, a group of about 8 people who claimed that they had a meeting of the North made certain demands. And when I looked at it, because I was clearly a party person, I looked at the Constitution and I said, who and who are supposed to be in that kind of meeting? It was clear to me those who were supposed to be in that kind of meeting were the deputy chairman not, the vice chairman of the 6 zones of the north, then all 3 zones of the north, and all the state chairmen and perhaps their secretaries. These were the people that were expected to be in the meeting. And when I looked at those that signed, none of them constituted any person that had the authority to make that statement. And barely a few days after, the real people, all the state chairmen, all the vice chairmen, all had a meeting and dissociated themselves from that communique. That tells you the actual disposition of the northern delegates. A similar thing also happened in the West, where a member of BOT summoned a meeting with certain people. At the end, the real people, that is to say, the vice chairman, the deputy chairman South, with all the vice chairmen in that zone, and with all the state chairmen from that zone, had a meeting and dissociated themselves. That begins to tell you that, looking at the majority, there is no crisis within the party. The small group from Anambra and Imo State could be noisy in the social media, but that is not in the interest of the party. They should find better ways of making their views across, because whoever is going to lead this party is going to be a leader that will be acceptable to people from Zamfara, Kanu, down to people from Rivers and to Lagos. It's not about Anambra, for Christ's sake, nor is it about Owerri. Each time they are raising their issues, they are talking about Anambra, Imo, or Abia issues. These people, though, these 3 states don't make up the entire federation. Once in a while, you hear another negative voice coming from the Enugu end. That is not it. We've come to a point where we should begin to respect leadership, respect authority, and begin to play forgiveness and brotherhood. It could be Mr. A's turn today. Tomorrow it could be your turn. For me, let the delegates determine the fate of any person. And if you're interested in becoming the national chairman, for Christ's sake, pay your dues, pay the required fees, and pick up and go and test your capacity. It's not about staying on the media, social media, because no worthy newspaper, Vanguard will not publish that kind of thing. Otherwise, I collect all the money from them. No good newspaper will do such publication. It is only in the social media where they can curse your father and curse your late mother and curse your grandfather. That's the kind of thing we see there. So I use this opportunity to really beg members of the party who have found it, the social media, their right tool to throw tantrums, that this is not the best way. Let's come together as one party. The future of this party is more important and is bigger than any personal interest, aspiration of any of us.
Okay, if you have successfully carried out a mock congress at the world and local levels, have you tried that at the national level? Because that appears, from where all the noise is being made, the pressure is on the national chairman. And if you want to water the ground before the national convention, you ought to visit the states, like the ones you just mentioned in the various zones, to prepare their minds for a smooth convention. Are you not going to do that?
We are coming to that. But again, you look at the body language of the possible delegates, because for now, we are rebuilding from the ward, then to local government, then to state. You need to finish with these structures before you now know who will be the state chairman that will be qualified to participate in the national convention. Then who will emerge from the states for the zonal offices and other national offices. If you look at the body language of the current officers from the north, then you can say that the national chairman doesn't have a problem. The whole lot of them from the north have signed, giving him a clean bill of health. The whole officers from the southwest have signed. The only area that you hear the noise is really from Anambra. And when you look at the elements that are really making this, they are not likely to be delegates. They are not likely to be delegates. So their noise may neither be here nor there. Before you become a delegate, you must run into this parameter of either a state chairman, state secretary of the party, a member of a state assembly, or rather the speaker, a majority leader, and things like that. These are the people who will be delegates. If you are not, if you don't fall into that, then all that noise will not change the position. That is why I think it still remains an embarrassment where people who know that they will not be delegates are using the social media to run the national leadership of the party down. That is not acceptable to any of us.
Considering the effect it is having on the party, the negative effect it's having on the party,
yes.
Is there no way these people, you must know them, is there no way you can talk with them, discuss with them, and appease them to see this party as an entity belonging to everybody, instead of going to cause confusion in the politics?
We've engaged in that, and for now, truly speaking, there's a committee headed by the Honorable Commissioner for Finance that is embarking on such discussion. Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Ifat Onejeme, is heading the committee. The Chief of Staff, Primus Odili, is a member of the committee. The State Secretary of the party, the Secretary of the committee, Honorable Chinedu Obidigwe, is a member of the committee. So we are already thinking along that line. And they've been in the secretariat. People have been coming up with issues and grievances, and they are trying their best. I must commend. I was there the other day when they handled the Ogbaru local government. Ogbaru has been like a volatile area. There have been a lot of petitions from Ogbaru, but I saw them walking out from that meeting all smiling and things like that. So I must commend them for the effort. And it's a continuous process for us. We will always do our best to bring the members who are really members of the party. But I must tell you, I have also noticed that a few of these characters are not behaving like they are truly members of the party. Some of them are behaving as if they are being sponsored from outside, because no true member of the family, no matter how aggrieved, will go to the extent of destroying the corporate image and identity of the party. Then you must be working for somebody outside the system, outside the family, outside the party. For such people, well, what do we do about them? We will get to the stage where all the processes of reconciliation have been applied. Then we must apply the big stick. It's either you're in or you are out.
This program is a language program. I mean that na inwe ike isu oyibo Swahili or even pitching English for you to participate in this program. There is this impression that the national chairmanship of the party has been perpetually zoned to Anambra State. Is it true?
I don't know what you mean by perpetually zoned. You see, APGA has perpetually won Anambra State. That should be the acclamation first. You know, get ready, win your polling booths. I say these things without reservation. Win your polling booths before we begin to talk about this. In any case, we have a chairman who has served the first term and is entitled constitutionally for 2 terms. So we have a chairman who served his first term and is entitled constitutionally for 2 terms in office. And in the circumstance, he could come to Anambra. So if the national chairman, who is from Anambra, is re-elected to serve his second term in office, which is a constitutional privilege, then one cannot describe that as perpetually. It is after the 8 years, you now begin to look at whether it's expedient to move the national chairmanship to some other place other than Anambra State. One thing I know about national politics is that anytime you're zoning the national leadership of a party to, you are looking at certain individuals in doing that zoning. You don't just zone at large, then begin to look for the national leadership of the party. It is dangerous because the national leader, the national chairman of a party can sabotage the party at the threshold of an election. Yeah. And that is it. We saw some candidates who sullenly withdrew from the race, presidential race, and it was like, how can you withdraw at this stage and things like that? So one must be careful even when that arises. We have not said it must be Anambra. Well, whichever zone will produce the national chairman, we must be looking at who in that zone. It's not about just taking it to that zone. If we don't find a character trustworthy, that has the capacity also to wear the crown as the national chairman of the party, then another zone has to take it. If we will have to remain in Anambra until we get it right, then so be it.
Does the party have a zoning arrangement from the beginning?
Oh, yes.
And if it has, why are we concentrating the leadership in this part of the country? Because that appears to be one reason the party appears not to be growing beyond its catchment area.
Let's not forget that initially it was Chekwa because the party was midwife from here. Then something happened along the line. Chekwas did not serve his full term, and Victor Ume took over the leadership of the party. He was supposed to be there for 8 years, but there were court cases, there was litigation that somehow extended their time to up to 10 years, as it were. Then after Victor Ume really is when you can say we've had a true convention in order to address this issue you just raised. But again, it fell on Chief Victor Oye, not by any design, but I remember even then there were just about 2 of them who were interested, himself and the former national secretary of the party, who later withdrew from the race, and Victor Oye went on to become the national chairman. Like I said, after his full term, in office, first term, second term, then it will be thrown open again. And there will be need for obvious reasons. We've seen the effect of producing a presidential candidate from the Middle Belt. That gave us 2 House of Rep seats in Benue State, and State Assembly seats, plus the House of Rep seat in Taraba. So we'll also look at that exploit. But I keep saying that in zoning, we'll be looking at the personalities. We are talking about the congresses, which is purely an internal matter of the party. That's our discussion today, from the wards to the national convention. And we are expecting constructive advice and criticism from members of the party, not from somebody who is describing it as party owner. So he's speaking as an outsider. Let him wait for us. When we tidy our house, we will meet them.
No, there is this other issue that has arisen in Anambra State. I mean, one influential politician, his aide, made statement with respect to the zoning and rotation formula in Anambra politics.
Yes.
And was trying to say that there's a difference between zoning and equity. I mean, is your party, the All Progressive Grand Alliance, still inclined to zoning and rotation formula with respect to the 2021 gubernatorial election in Anambra State?
First of all, that expression, zoning and equity, is a distinction without difference. And it can only come from one that does not have a deep intellectual understanding of the expressions. Because equity means and the process of it going round to reach is the process of zoning. So one cannot engage himself in such a sterile difference. For our party, we've said it. We have not said it in-house. We've made the issue public that the next governor of Anambra State for our party is being zoned to the south. During the last elections, we made it a campaign issue, and we are not reneging on it. We are not changing the circumstances. There is every reason why it should go back to the south. In this dispensation, starting from perhaps the Second Republic, when Ezife became governor, it was barely for 2 years. He didn't have a full tenure. Then from south to Mbanluju, had been there for 4 years again. He didn't have his second term. So for south, when you add it up now, it becomes 2 Ezife, 4 years Mbanluju. Some people are adding Tiaba's. Tiaba was deputy governor who became the governor at the unlawful impeachment. As soon as Peter Obi was reinstated in office, then everything returned to status quo. That was why she went back as deputy. So one cannot add those few months to that of the South. For Central, we've had it continuously for 11 years, 34 months. 11 and a half years, because we were, what's his name, Dr. Chris Ngige, had it for 34 months. Then Peter Obi had it for 8 years. Put together, that's about 11 and a half years. Not at the end of this tenure, we will now have it for 4 plus 4. If you now want to add, for mischief purposes, Obabiasika, period, to what the North has, the argument now begins to help South. That it is only South that has not had a full term in office. Because the full term means that you will serve your tenure out. First term and second term. Central has had its first term and second term in office, plus an extra from Ngige. Not by the grace of God, is already having his first term and is into the second term in office. So going back to equity, equity now demands that the zone that has not had a continuous serve for 2 terms should be the zone that should have it. And that is South Senatorial Zone.
So we've been featuring the political advisor to the governor, Chief Barrister Ifeatu Obiokoye, and with me here interviewing him is my friend and colleague of the Vanguard, Vincent Ujumadu.
Chief Obiokoye, recently a popular clergy in this state, during a synod of the church of the diocese, made some remarks what prompted that kind of position of the bishop.
Yes.
Does your party have any religious inclination to any particular denomination? Because some people were saying that the original party, the founding fathers of the party were made up of a particular denomination, and that perhaps was why a particular denomination had been dominating. Can you make a comment on that?
You see, I'm the political advisor to His Excellency the Governor. My office is a very sensitive office, and I want to let you know today that I'm a knight of the Anglican Communion. So for a political advisor to a regime that is being accused of favoring another denomination to be an Anglican also tells you the disposition of the regime. You see, again, I want to mention that some offices as commissioners are very sensitive. The man that is in charge of our finance, Onejeme, is an Anglican. You may say that he attends Pentecost, but he's an Anglican by birth. There was a time I also used to attend the Pentecostal. That's one problem with the Anglicans, but a lot of us are coming back. So, but he's an Anglican controlling the finance of this regime. That is very sensitive. It's not about every office. There are certain offices that define a regime. Finance is one major office that defines a regime. Unfortunately, when His Lordship as of 4 of Agwata Diocese made that, said, I wrote a letter. Painful as it is, I reminded him of my position as a knight of the church and as a special advisor. For me, I think the bishop was most uncharitable to this regime, and he must have been born out of pure mischief, because this regime has maintained an open channel of communication where I think that some of these things can be discussed and sorted out. If there's any marginalization anywhere, it could be inadvertent. But I believe it is better that such matters are taken up at closed door, where you can discuss it in a more sober and friendly atmosphere, you gain more mileage than coming in a synod to incite the people, very much against the dictates of your calling as a priest. In my letter, I cited certain aspects of the Bible which tells us what the relationship between the priesthood and the church vis-a-vis the government ought to be. And the summary of it all is that at all times, the priesthood must always pray for the leaders. They must always pray. When they are doing badly, they should pray for their correction. You don't come out in a synod where you have a mixed congregation of all sorts of people from different political parties, from even different religion, because the synod there was not just for Anglicans. And begin to make such statements. Some part of his statements, you begin to wonder how it was related with the religious affairs. Like talking about the Ohaneze affair. What does the Anglican Communion have to do with the position of Ohaneze? The Anglican Communion is Church of Nigeria. It is not Church of Ndigbo. So it cannot be speaking for Ohaneze and Ndigbo, for Christ's sake. It was embarrassing for the bishop to go down that way, unless he has some parochial interest. But I will not stay openly also to behave like the bishop, because I would rather prefer that matters like this are discussed through the normal channel of discussion, which is cordial, more decent, and will achieve better result for both parties. It will also gain the respect for government and give the respect for the Anglican Communion, which I belong to. And I will prefer a situation where we'll leverage on those we have even within the system to set up meetings for these matters to be discussed. That will be better for the Anglican Communion than coming in open synod to criticize a government that has been performing very well. A government that has been voted for a second time, all the local governments, 21 over 21, then what is the bishop talking about? If he voted against the party, the people voted for us. That is the conflict he will be going into when he openly begins to engage a popular government that may be doing something wrong, because a popular government may be doing something wrong. But you can only get that government to change his ways, change his pattern, change his approach, if we use the open channel of communication, which has always been there. Let me leave it like that.
One of the strongest points of this administration, especially in the first term of Governor Willie Obiano, is the security architecture, which has been adjudged as one of the best.
That is true.
Or apparently the best in Nigeria as we speak today. But then there are some recent developments. The assassination of a President General, the President General of NIMO, Town Union, late Satoni Ibuka.
Yes.
And there was this incident in Anambra West, around, Miata or whatever, where the herdsmen and the farmers had their clashes. And we remember that when Obiano came into office in the first instance,
Yes.
that soon after that, the Upper Iweka, which was notorious for all kinds of hoodlum and miscreant activities, became quiet. But it will appear that all these things, all those misdemeanor, which was in place before he came on board, have returned. Would you, in all honesty, say that Anambra State is still #1 in terms of security and business-friendly environment?
You need to live outside the state to appreciate that we are still number one and will always remain number one. One thing about security is there is no society, no community, no country, no state in the universe that is totally crime-free. Even the best civilized societies, go to New York, the way you have assassinations here, you have the same thing. The way you have stealing here, the way you have housebreaking, this is the same thing. But in security, one thing you must commend the state for was, you remember how the governor spoke after the assassination of the President General, and in barely 2 weeks, there was a breakthrough. 2 people have now been caught out of the 5. And there's a serious manhunt for the remaining 3. People like Bola Ige, the Attorney General of this federation, Minister for Mines and Power, were assassinated. Up till today, we don't have an idea of who did it. People like Dokubo, Dikibo, Vice Chairman of PDP, South, was assassinated up till today. Not so many if we begin to count them. But it's remarkable that in 2 weeks, you were able to get the people that did that. The herdsmen, local people issue, we must commend what we have set up in Anambra State. Because since this problem of herdsmen started up to 7-8 years ago, we've not had a major crisis like our brothers in Enugu State because of the machinery we set up as a government right from the beginning. And that machinery increased or encouraged participation between the locals and our security forces and government on one part. It was always determined that at any time, any local costs the herdsmen to lose their distance, we paid for it. The same way, if they caused problem for us, they paid for it. So we've been managing our issue. It is part of the security measures we've been able to. We've never had a full-blown crisis like you have in Enugu State, where a whole community is sacked, burnt, like you have in North. So we must commend, to a large extent, the security measure. One thing I must say to you in a summary is that in the last few months, admittedly, it does appear that as a people, which is typical of us, Ndoji, we relaxed when things were no more kidnapping, no more robbery. We all relaxed. And these people started coming back. You notice they came back after the elections. Some of them came in, took part in those elections, governorship election and all this senatorial. So after the elections, they became jobless. Because we had relaxed, they came back again. They've not taken over. Government has relaunched the dreaded Operation Pochapu, and they know what Operation Pochapu. Operation Pochapu is one setup that catches you even before you start operation. We go and pick you up from the house. That's why with our equipment, the people that ran away from Imo State, from Owerri, and came to Oba, we went and picked them. That's the nature of the equipment. By the end of this month, there is this equipment that has come in that will capture the entire state. Anything that is happening in any part of Anambra State will be under pure surveillance. we are praying that by the end of the month, when this equipment comes into play, then we'll know that we've perfected our security measures.
Thank you. That's a very good news. And I think on this note, we are drawing the curtain on this edition of Face the Press. And it has been the political advisor to the governor, Chief Barrister Ifat Obi-Okoye, who featured in this edition of the program. I thank you for participating, Chief Obi-Okoye.
Thank you so much.
I also give my thanks to my friend here from the Vanguard newspaper,
Thank you,
Vincent Ujum, madam. My name remains Ebunamuta. Remain blessed.